Take it away.
Okay, so this is your new glove box. As you can see, it's already inert. The main screen is showing us the PPMs right now and the box pressure relative to outside atmospheric pressure. With this system, I don't know if everybody's used glove boxes or not, but pretty much the idea is that this is a completely sealed system. Right now we're in circulation mode, which is what will be true 99% of the time. So the system's not using any gas, it's just circulating through the pipes, through a blower in the purifier, and then through the filter column and back into the glove box. So the filter column has copper catalyst and molecular sieve that scrub out the O2 and the H2O. The other operating state of the glove box is called a purge. What that is pretty much if you ever accidentally let some air into the glove box and your levels go way up over 100 and they don't come back down, you can go ahead and turn off circulation and trigger a purge. The purge is just a way to close off the filter column, keep it sealed, and shoot fresh nitrogen through the system to get the O2 levels down without completely saturating the filter column. And I will show you how to do all this, obviously, I'm just going to go basic concepts. And so the third state of operation is regeneration, and that is the process that will degas the copper catalyst and molecular sieve once it gets saturated and cannot fit anymore. On this system, I'd expect maybe between every 2 and 3 months you might need to do that, but it will be completely dependent on how high your oxygen levels are. So it's not a strict timeline. Whenever the O2 is over your threshold of comfort, you can go ahead and regenerate the system. And I'll go more into detail with that later. So, in regards to the operation, you can see on the right side we have 2 antechambers, one that we call. And so the idea with these, they allow you to bring things into the glove box and bring things out without letting air in. So each system is hooked up, or each chamber is hooked up to both the vacuum pump and to a refill line that comes from the glove box. So when you are bringing items into the glove box, we recommend doing 3 evacuation and refill cycles. If you do have any sort of materials that are porous, if you're bringing in a box of Kim Whites or something, you can just let that stay in the antechamber under dynamic vacuum, maybe even overnight if you want, if you don't want to have any risk of letting oxygen in. If you ever do bring something in and you notice that the O2 spikes up, you can always just put it right back in the antechamber and evacuate it for longer. Shouldn't be a huge problem. So if it's small chamber, pretty straightforward. You can see there's just the one valve down here. So if I turn it to the left, it will evacuate. And you just want to let that gauge completely bottom out, let it sit for 5 or 10 seconds, and then go ahead and refill. So the refill. And the sound that you just heard was the box refilling from the tank to make up the volume of nitrogen that was just used. It's a good idea also, before you open the outside door, just to double check that this is not still refilling, because then you will be just completely purging the nitrogen out of the glove box with a distant potential to let some air back in. This chamber, the doors open, it's pretty self-explanatory. Small tray inside. And these shouldn't require any adjustments or anything. Probably every once in a while you can check the gasket here, especially the outside one, make sure it's clean, make sure the edge is clean. You can use some IPA on it. If you want, you can use vacuum grease to get it to seal. It's super dried out. The large chamber, unscrew it entirely, and then it just lifts right up. So. Again, just check that every once in a while, and you can clean the inside door as well. When you do tighten the large antechamber, you just want to do a little bit, not very much. You always want to keep a little bit of space between the spindle and the door arm to guarantee it's not over-tightened. Likewise, when this one evacuates, which is done with this black handle, you will notice that this spindle gets loose. It's because the doors do suck in a little bit. You still want to retighten it because then when it refills, it'll be over tight, and there's potential with chronic over tightening that the threads might get gummed up and whatnot. So yeah, you can see it goes a lot further in now. So with this one, same thing, 3 evac refill cycles, and close that one. The refill valve is the yellow one underneath the small antechamber. So, and with this, you always want to make sure that you do actually close the refill before you start the next evacuation. Otherwise, the pump will not be happy. So with the antechambers also, some people like to keep them evacuated all the time. Some people keep them refilled. It's totally up to you what you want to do. A lot of labs put a little indicator on here, maybe a magnet up here. You can switch from like inert or O2 or whatever, so you always know what the state of the antechambers are. I'd probably recommend, if you do want to keep them in a negative, to keep them in a static negative. So evacuate and then close the hand valve. That way there's not going to be any unwanted interaction between this chamber, small chamber. You know, if you have the vacuum valve open on this and you're trying to bring something in here, it's going to take a lot longer for that to evacuate down. Likewise, the vacuum pump also is used to lower the box pressure. So when you put your hands in, for example, you hear the pump will be taking some gas out. So it's usually good to try and have the pump just take care of one thing at a time. And you do, especially with the large chamber, you just want to always make sure that it is fully refilled before you try to open it, or else you also can kind of damage. I know it looks like this handle can take a lot of force, but it has a max, a limit, like anything else. So a little bit of vacuum's not bad. So I guess we can get down to the operation panel now.
Switch spots.
This is kind of hard for everyone to see. We should just let the iPhone in. So this is the main screen. You can see it's giving us the PPM levels and the box pressure. The bottom 4 buttons here are just a basic functions menu. So you have circulation, you can turn off, you hear the valves close and the blower stops spinning. This is the regeneration for when your O2 levels do not keep coming down. And again, I'll go over that in more detail later. VPG is the vacuum pump, and that should always be on. And the light. So, in regards with navigating through the different menus on here, it's actually pretty straightforward. So, if you picture 3 menus below this one, and each one has sub-menus to the right of that. So, to get to the first set of menus, I'll just press the down button, and this is the functions menu. So here you see you can turn on or off the O2, H2O analyzers. If I press either this button or the right arrow, I'll go to the next function screen. This screen basically mimics the foot pedal here. You can add some gas or you can take some gas out. This will still stay between your pressure set points. So essentially the way that the Glovebox keeps the pressure in check is you set a lower limit and upper limit, and it will automatically add or take out gas within that. But with the foot pedal, before I move on, what you can use this for is when you're going into the Glovebox, if you go in too fast and the Glovebox cannot evacuate quick enough, if it hits 15 millibar, it'll actually turn off the circulation and the analyzers as a safety precaution, and so you do have to turn those back on. But what you can always do when you're going to put your arms in is you can stand on the low pressure pedal and it will start evacuating sooner, so you don't over-pressurize it. The next function screen is circulation, which is on the main screen too. And that's it. So from the main screen, if I go down twice, I'll come to the status menu. This first screen is a place where you can display a full text of any alarm message that you have flashing on the main screen. We have none right now. Second screen, okay, so this is giving us the statistics for the purifier. So it's been running for 8 hours total. It's been 2 hours since the last regeneration, and if you are doing a regeneration, it will tell you how long is left in the process. which is 16 hours overall, 960 minutes. Next screen, this is just basically a maximum and minimum level that the H2O sensor has read since the last time this was reset. So if I press reset right now, it will keep track of long-term, your highest and lowest levels. And the next screen is the same for the O2 sensor. So just reset it. Operating hours for the vacuum pump and the computer. If the pump ever needs servicing by Edwards, they might ask you, what the total number of hours is that's been running. So that's the status menu. So now if I go down 3 times, this brings us to the parameters menu. So the first screen is the working limits. This is where you have your set points for the pressure in the box. For a box this size, I'd recommend keeping a 4 millibar difference. I have it set from 0 to 4 right now. You could do 1 to 5 if you want, or 1 to 4 is fine also. Just whatever feels comfortable to you. The way to change this is you'll press the edit button, and it will bring up a cursor, which you can press up and down to change the value, or you can press left and right what it is controlling. So if I wanted to do a higher pressure, I would put that up and then press enter. If you are going to do a purge on the system, like I mentioned, if you actually let O2 in, what you'd want to do is turn off circulation first, then come into this menu, and you would change the upper to 14 millibar, which is about the highest it can go, and then you can put the lower to 10 millibar. And so what that will do, it will overpressurize the glove box. And then when you open up the hand valve on the roof, it will vent the gas out, but you'll also hear that the nitrogen will continuously be added from the tank because it's trying to maintain that 10 millibar, but it will probably only be able to maintain about 3 millibar, so it will always be purging. And I'll put that back down. So the second screen in the parameters menu is sensor alarm limits. Essentially, if the H2O or O2 levels ever go above 20 ppm, you'll have a flashing alarm message on the main screen. It just makes it a little bit more obvious if there's a problem. These also can be changed to whatever you'd like, so it's the same thing, edit, change it, enter. The histories is limits. This is basically a set point that tells the computer how much pressure to compensate over your set point. So right now, if I put my hands inside and the glove box hits 4 millibar, it's going to evacuate to 2 millibars less than that because I have it set for 2 in the histories, so it'll always go around 2, 3. And you can change these. Pretty much, you'll see this most commonly when you're refilling the large antechamber and you're constantly hitting the lower set point. A small hysteresis will make the gas valve work very quickly because it's only adding a little bit each time. The reason I set this to 2 is so that it'll stay open for longer, closed for longer, so it's a little bit less wear and tear. The pressure alarm limits, if the glove box goes above or below these positive and negative set points, you will get a flashing alarm message. You can set these narrower if you want, but chances are it's not going to be super important. This option here will allow the circulation mode to start automatically after a regeneration is finished. This is on right now, so if you press F3 it'll turn off. I'd recommend leaving that on, so if your regen finishes at night, in the morning, you can come back to the glove box and it'll already be circulating and fully inert again. If you press escape, it will bring you back to the main screen of whatever menu you're in, and then escape again will bring you to the main screen. And the final screen, if you press up, is just information. So it gives the address in New Hampshire of the factory, phone number, and the project number for this specific glove box, which can also be found on the silver sticker above the antechamber. So if, for example, you can't get a hold of me if you have like a question or a problem, you can call me. They'll just ask for that project number so they know what the system is that you have. Let's see. Any questions about that so far? Good? Fairly straightforward? Everyone's used to Glovebox? Pretty much. Okay, so for the maintenance on the Glovebox, it's fairly straightforward. You can see in the back where the circulation pipes connect, there are two 0.3 micron HEPA filters. They will eventually get clogged up with particulates, so we recommend changing them once a year. For the gloves and the O-rings, we recommend changing once a year. I unofficially recommend changing them just whenever you get a hole. So it may happen before a year is up, or it may happen after a year is up. So totally up to you.
We'll give it a month.
The O-rings will eventually dry out and kind of crack and lose their elasticity, so you can change them as needed. Let's see.
How do you change the glove?
Okay, for changing the glove, you can. Okay, so the best way to do it is to order a spare part known as a glove port cover, internal glove port cover. Dan saw that in the system that we went over to. It's not super expensive. It's $350, but it will last forever, and it's interchangeable between all glove boxes, or MBraun glove boxes. So, quick sales pitch, sorry. That would live inside the glove box. What's nice is you can change a glove much more easily, and if you do have an emergency where there's a huge hole in the glove, you don't want everything to get wrecked, you can immediately seal the glove port. Without that, the method will be a little more complicated.
I think I've done this
You've
method
done this,
before.
okay. See if it's the same as how I do it. So, what you would do first is you would turn off circulation first. Anytime there's a chance of O2 getting in, you want to turn off circulation so that you don't immediately have to do a regeneration. So turn off circulation, but I would recommend leaving the pressure where it is, fairly low. Take off both of the O-rings, so they just come off like this. And then you can fold the glove back until it's near the edge, or slide it back until it's near the edge. And then what you would do is you would take the new glove, put it over the existing glove, put it basically on as far as it's going to be on, and then from the inside, from over here, you would pull the original glove off to the inside of the glove box. And then you can go ahead and put the O-rings on over the new glove. So chances are, with that method, your oxygen concentration, it may go up to the maximum that the system can read, which is 999 ppm. So that will probably take a full tank of nitrogen, or slightly more to purge out fully. With the glove port cover, it usually will max out at maybe 200 ppm of oxygen. Because what you can do also with that is, when you have the glove port sealed, you can roll up the glove and then fold it over the glove port and then put your O-rings on, so there's a much smaller volume of air that's potentially going to get into the system. And I'll leave you with the part number for that. So it's the only thing that I really, especially if there's any chance of anything pyrophoric inside.
Yeah, we'll be working with a lot of electrical leads, and probe tips tend to puncture gloves pretty easily.
Sure. So everyone will be really good at changing gloves by the way. Okay, so for the rest of the maintenance, the vacuum pump is pretty straightforward. Kind of a pain in the butt. I know a lot of people don't ever change the oil. For this one, we recommend changing the oil every second time you do a regeneration, which is probably about once every 6 months, which is what Edwards recommends for these. The regeneration process is basically, it's going to heat the catalyst, purge special regeneration gas, and then it does 4 evacuation and refill cycles, just like an antechamber, on the filter column. So the vacuum pump is going to potentially get a lot of moisture, maybe solvent vapors if you're using solvents inside, into the oil, and so every second time is a good idea, or at least every 6 months. For changing the oil, the only thing that you have to do is just turn off circulation, and then you can go ahead and undo the pipe, unplug the pump, and you do actually have to take the pump off of the drip tray to get the existing oil out of there, which will come out of this plug. So it does get pretty hot in the end also, If you want, you can, let it cool down a bit first. But basically, it's connected to this tray with 4 10mm M6 nuts. So you just the ones in the back you have to take totally off, and the ones in the front are slotted, so you can usually loosen them, and the pump will kind of slide out. So I usually put it up onto a desk. It's the easiest. Empty it into a bucket that you can take care of according to local rules and regulations, whatever it may be. And then you can refill from either of the top 2 plugs. This pump does require, was there any extra? Yeah. Oh, there wasn't. It does require, yeah, okay, grade 19, yeah, which you can get from Edwards, or I'm sure any number of non-Edwards suppliers.
We've already got a case of it.
Okay, great. So when you do refill, you just want to refill to about the top line. It's good to go. So that's changing the oil. There's 2 other things that you might need to check on this. One of them is this mist filter. It has 2 different types of filters inside. They will get extremely saturated eventually, need to be changed. Edwards recommends once a year. We also recommend once a year. You can either get a whole new mist filter if you'd like, or if you go to the Edwards site, you can buy just 2 filters inside. I think they sell them in a 5-pack, so it's a lot cheaper also. And so there's just 4 screws that you can take this apart, throw out the old ones, put the new ones in, put that together. Once a year. This rubber hose right here is actively draining usable oil from the exhaust filter back into the pump through a small air puffer to evaporate water out of it. There is a small flow restrictor in the bottom of the hose, if you can see inside, just a little stainless steel thing. So if you ever see that there is oil building up inside of the mist filter or spilling out on top, there's a chance that that flow restrictor has gotten clogged. So you can just kind of squeeze it out of the pipe and squirt some isopropyl through it or poke at it with a paper clip. That's it. And hopefully that will keep all the oil on the inside of the pump. The final piece of maintenance, kind of hard to see, but in the back, if you look at the circulation piping, you'll see that there's a blue box and a aqua kind of green colored box. That one is the H2O sensor, the aqua one. You can probably see it there, the actually maybe. So that does require cleaning and recoating. Probably a good idea to probably do it between every 3 months and every 6 months. You can probably do either. We recommend every 3 months, but typically it's probably still fine at 6 months, but maybe not quite longer after that. So the idea is that the sensor tip is coated with phosphoric acid, and eventually that's going to have enough stuff stick onto it that it no longer completes the electrical circuit. So the cleaning and recoating is very easy. It's fully picturized in the manual, but I'll go through it quickly right now just so you have it in your heads. So basically taking something in and out of the glove box, whether it's the analyzer from the pipe or doing a new feed through in the back, is the same setup as doing a purge, manual purge in the system. So turn off circulation, put your pressure up between 10 and 14. It's just going to really limit any sort of air that might get back in. So when you do that, take the moisture sensor out, and then you can replace that with the KF40 white cap in the pipe, so the pipe is sealed. Once the sensor's out, I think you saw it there, right? You just unscrew the cap, you'll see the printed circuit on the end of the sensor, and you can hold it over a sink and just squirt it with DI water, and then kind of wipe it dry with a Kim wipe, not super hard, but just dry it. You can either, after that, let it sit out for 10 minutes fully dry, or if you have like an extra gun, you can dry it that way. And then the recoating is with 85% phosphoric acid, and I usually just dip a cotton swab in it, and that's enough to recoat the sensor. So you just coat the printed circuit. Very straightforward, put the cap back on, put it back into the glove box. It might take about a half an hour to more fully dry out and read properly, so it might look like you have really high levels at first, but give it 30, 60 minutes. That's it for maintenance. So I'd like to go over the regeneration process in a little more detail. So like I mentioned before, it's going to heat the filter column, it's going to purge the regeneration gas through, and it's going to do 4 evacuated full cycles. Because it's going to access the vacuum pump, you do want to first make sure that the antechambers are not evacuating. They can be in a static vacuum, but just not going to the pump. Second thing you want to check is make sure that the Glovebox is at least below 100 ppm of oxygen, because you don't want to refill with really high levels at the end. If it's above that, you just purge. If it's above that, you're probably already purging anyway. The third thing you want to check is just to make sure that you do have enough regeneration gas before you start the process. It's going to use probably about 600 or 700 psi of tank pressure. So if you have less than that, it's a good idea to stop the tank first. And that's it. If you check those 3 things, you're ready to go. So when you start the regeneration, you do have to turn off circulation first, I believe. And it's first going to ask you if you're sure that you want to regenerate. So if you hit it by accident, you can say no and it won't regenerate. Second thing it will do when you say yes is it's going to open the gas inlet valve and the gas outlet valve. That's your chance to check to make sure that the gas is physically flowing, make sure there's no blockages in the pipes. If you set your regulator outgoing pressure at about 4 psi, that typically will be the right flow rate, which is roughly 15 liters per minute for the regeneration gas. But you do just want to make sure that it is flowing. This short hose is the regeneration gas outlet. This will put out maybe 40, maybe 50 milliliters of water as well. It's a good idea to actually drop this into a beaker and collect that water. The reason is that the amount of water that you get out is directly correlated to the health of the catalyst. So if the catalyst ends up seeing solvent vapors, especially chlorinated solvents or hydrazine or acids, it will slowly become permanently poisoned and it will not be able to degas the O2. In which case you'll get less water out because the O2 comes off with water when the hydrogen bonds with it and takes it off. So if you ever see that there's less and less water coming out and eventually there's no water, probably a sign that you need to change the catalyst. Actually, that's kind of the definitive sign that you need to. And you'll probably have terrible O2 levels as well. And you can also kind of do a waft test of the water to see how pungent it is. Eventually, if you do use solvents inside, like we were mentioning before, you can get an internal carbon trap that will help to protect the catalyst from solvent damage. But yeah, the regeneration process takes 16 hours. When it is finished, there's 2 things you want to check, and it's a good idea to keep a little log of roughly how much water you get out and roughly how much gas you use. So in the future, if you ever have problems with the O2 level in the Glovebox, probably the first 2 things we'll ask you is how much water you're getting out and how much gas you're using. So maybe like 90% of the time, the problem with O2 in the box isn't related to a leak, but it's related to a poor regeneration. So maybe there wasn't any gas flow because there's a blocked valve or something, or maybe the catalyst is dead. So good idea to keep track of those.
Is the regeneration inlet always connected, or?
You can leave it connected. Yeah, that way you won't have any air in the hose. It doesn't make a huge difference if you dose the catalyst with air from the hose to start the regeneration, but it's a little more ideal to not do that. So keeping the hose in there is a good idea. Let's see. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Yeah, we'll look into it. Do you have any questions about any of that? Pretty straightforward. My card is on the side. I'm located on the West Coast, so I'm on West Coast time. Call my cell phone, send me an email if you have any questions about spare parts, anything like that.
How about just switching the nitrogen tank?
Switching the nitrogen tank, you just want to turn off the needle valve and close the tank, and then switch the regulator to the new one. So.
Are you cleaning inside the surfaces? Inside surfaces?
I don't know, but you're going to find out. Probably without a lot of solvent use, it'll stay fairly clean actually. But if you do start using it, you'll see, potential cloudiness, you can wipe it on the inside, but if you actually want to do a proper cleaning, you probably want to take off the window, which is easier than it sounds, but then you do have to purge the glove box as if it's new, so you have to do 4 or 5 takes. But if you take the window off, you can use IPA, you can use acetone, you can use Windex, elbow grease, you know how dirty it is. But doing it while the system is inert, it makes it more difficult, obviously. So pretty much just wiping it, I think, for the most part. But if you're mostly just doing electrical testing inside, chances are it will still look close to this, you know, hopefully for a while. But yeah, sorry. No great way to clean it while it's in.
All right. Questions? Okay. I'm gonna close this file.